October 1969, Central Highlands, South Vietnam. The rain started before dawn and never stopped. It fell soft at first, then turned steady, like it meant to wash the hills clean of us. The air smelled of wet earth and burned fuel. Our trucks lined the narrow road east of Pleiku, waiting for the order to move. The headlights cut through mist and showed the red clay rising in steam. We had 8 cargo trucks, 2 gun trucks, and a deadline we would not make. I was convoy commander that morning, standing beside the lead gun truck with my clipboard wrapped in plastic, the engine heat pressed against my legs. The creek down the slope hissed where rain hit it, black and wide even from here. Locals called it Black Creek. On the map, it was only a thin blue line. The radio crackled. The order came quiet, almost polite. Move at first light. Take the spur road. Cross at Black Creek. That was the first mistake. Before we start the video, hit the subscribe button to support the channel. It only takes a second. We have been running supplies up and down 2 Corps for weeks without rest. The monsoon left most routes washed out or mined, so every trip was a gamble. That morning, our job was simple: on paper deliver ammunition, fuel, and sealed cargo to the forward base near Dak To. 12 hours, in and out, no stopovers. The map showed 2 possible routes, both bad. Route QL-19 was cratered from airstrikes, so command gave us a new one, a narrow dirt spur that followed a creek bed north before bending back west. Someone at battalion called it a shortcut. They told us ARVN guides would meet us at the turnoff. None did. We waited 20 minutes, then another 15. I finally radioed Pleiku base, but the net gave nothing but soft static. By then, the rain turned into a white fog that swallowed every sound and shape. My driver, Jones, tapped the dash and said, maybe the antenna wire was loose again. I checked it myself, no fault. Just that faint hiss, like the radio was hearing something too low for us to catch. The convoy rolled out slow, engines echoing off the wet hills. Our tires threw red clay and wide fans behind us. I counted the trucks again, 8 cargo, 2 gun. I kept the gun trucks front and rear, spacing no more than 50 yards. The road curved through old plantations, the kind the French left behind. The smell of rot hung low, mixed with diesel. A few old bamboo stakes poked from the mud along the shoulder. I didn't know it then, but they were the first signs of where the creek changed course. By mid-morning, the rain lightened. We passed an old checkpoint with no guards, just a broken sign half buried in vines. I recognized the Crest French engineers. Their old routes still ghosted under ours, stone bridges buried in the dirt, culverts that didn't match our maps. The younger drivers didn't care. They played cards on the dash when we stopped for fuel checks. I just watched the fog, waiting for it to open enough to see the ridgeline. When we finally reached the turnoff, the new road looked wrong. Too narrow for cargo trucks, no tracks ahead of us, only the rain cutting tiny streams through the ruts. Jones asked if we were lost. I said no, this was it, and pointed to a faded stake painted white at the top. The letters were gone, but the angle matched the route line on my sheet. I told the column to slow to 15 and keep eyes sharp. We would cross Black Creek before noon, then hit the base by 2. We rolled on. The hum started near the next bend. Not loud, not clear, just under the radio noise. I thought it was feedback from the long whip antenna brushing the canopy. But every time the creek came into view, the hum grew stronger. I made a note on my clipboard. It seemed harmless then, just one more odd sound among many. Ahead, the fog rose in sheets, lifting and falling like breath. The smell changed too. It wasn't just rain and mud anymore. It had a sharp bite like burned wood and spoiled meat together. I checked the cargo manifest again, thinking maybe a drum had cracked. Everything listed clean. Fuel sealed, ammo dry. The sealed crates marked commo repair were tied under tarps, straps unbroken. The men didn't talk much. You don't waste words in weather like that. Everyone just stared ahead, watching taillights fade and reappear in the white. I kept my eye on the ridge markers, counting distance by time, not numbers. The rain thickened again. Somewhere behind us, the last truck backfired, and the sound rolled up the valley like thunder. We were still 3 miles from Black Creek when the first doubt hit me. The road dropped sharper than shown. The drainage ditches on both sides were flooded and running black. When I looked back, the ruts already filled with water that reflected the sky like oil. I radioed the column to tighten up. The static hissed, then cleared for half a second, long enough for a voice to come through, not one of ours. Just one word I couldn't catch, maybe French, maybe something else. Then gone. We kept rolling. The odometer needle shook as we hit the washouts. The creek wasn't far. I could smell it now, a mix of silt and something metallic, like wet wire. The bamboo along the road knocked together in uneven rhythm. I tried to ignore it, but it followed us, always 3 knocks at a time. By the time the lead truck broke into the open, fog still thick around the hood, I felt that quiet sense before trouble starts. The men knew it too. No one said a word. Black Creek sat in a low cut between 2 ridges, wrapped in fog so thick it looked like smoke. The water moved slow near the banks, then fast in the middle where it narrowed under a cluster of bamboo. It wasn't wide, maybe 20 yards across, but deep enough that the brown current carried whole branches downstream. I walked ahead with Jones to test the depth. The mud sucked at our boots, cold enough to sting. The rain had eased, but the air stayed heavy, almost still. The old French bridge was gone, nothing left but 2 cracked pylons leaning at angles that didn't match. Someone had thrown planks across to mark the crossing. I didn't like it, but the road offered no other turn. We could try to reverse the column, but with the ground that soft, we'd bury half the trucks before we turned around. So I marked the forward point, flagged the banks, and ordered low gear. Our radio net kept flickering. I heard fragments, someone calling from rearguard, another voice whispering, coordinates that didn't belong to us. The hum was there again, low but steady, rising when we faced the creek. I told myself it was interference off the water. Jones said it sounded like a generator under the surface. He was half joking, but the way he said it made me think he believed it. I logged the time, 10:24 hours, and told the lead truck to cross slow. Its engine growled as it hit the water, wheels throwing small waves that lapped against my legs. I watched its red tail lights fade into mist, a heartbeat, then 2, then gone. The sound of the engine carried a few seconds longer, then stopped. No radio call. No movement, only the creek again, breathing in short, even pulls. I keyed the mic. Nothing but that same hum. The second truck driver leaned out and waved, asking if he should go. I nodded, mostly because I didn't want the line jammed up in soft ground. The second truck entered the ford, water up to the lug nuts, then halfway up the sideboards. Its headlights shimmered across the fog. Then they blinked once and disappeared. Jones looked at me. I remember his mouth moving, but not the words. My ears rang like pressure had shifted. I took a step toward the water and stopped. The current had changed color. It wasn't brown anymore. It looked darker, with streaks of something slick floating on top. Diesel, I thought. Maybe one of the trucks cracked a tank. I tasted it in the air before I smelled it bitter, like burned varnish. I called both trucks again. No answer. The rest of the convoy waited silent. Some men stepped out and stared at the water, trying to see shapes through the fog. I waved them back, ordered the engines off except mine. We waited 5 minutes, then 10. Nothing came out of that creek. I took the gun truck down the slope, slow and steady, trying to find the edge of the ford. The tires slid on slick clay, but we held. Jones kept the M60 trained across the fog. When the headlights hit the center of the creek, they bounced off something metallic just below the surface. A corner of a truck bed maybe, or just a rock. I stepped out, waded in up to my knees, felt with the boot. Hard ground, then sudden drop. That was enough for me. I backed us out and told the others to stay put until I figured what happened. 2 trucks don't vanish clean like that, not in shallow water. My first thought was sinkhole, maybe an old French culvert. That made sense. What didn't make sense was why we heard nothing. No splash, no yell, not even metal tearing. The fog drifted closer around the trucks. The bamboo clacked again, 3 knocks, slow and even, like someone tapping out a code. The men looked toward the sound but saw nothing. I tried the radio again, changing frequencies. The hum followed each one, always same pitch, never louder, never gone. By then, the rain had stopped completely. The air was still and warm. The creek looked calm again, like it had never moved. I felt the weight of the mission pressing down, cargo lost, men missing, and no route to base. The sealed crates mattered more than any of us knew. I remembered the way command gave that order. No paper, no signature, only a voice through the net. We had one choice, wait for daylight to lift the fog or move ahead blind and risk more trucks. I told the men we'd hold until visibility improved. We set perimeter lights, checked ammo, and kept 1 gun truck idling for radio power. The last thing I wrote in my log before closing the book was a single line, Black Creek Ford unstable. 2 trucks missing, fog intact. When I looked up, the creek was still breathing. We waited through the noon hour. The sky stayed the same dull gray, and the fog thickened again as if drawn by the sound of the engines. Every few minutes, I checked the ford, hoping to see a tarp, a mirror flash, anything that told me the trucks were stuck and not gone. Nothing. The water looked deeper now, though the rain had stopped hours ago. The men started whispering guesses. Sinkhole, enemy fire, bad maps. I kept them busy tightening straps and cleaning weapons, anything to stop their eyes drifting toward that creek. By 1300, I couldn't stand waiting anymore. I pulled Corporal Dean from the second gun truck and told him to take Private Ellis on foot up the east bank. Their job was to find where the creek widened again, maybe catch sight of a downstream current or floating debris. I marked their departure time in the log. They took 2 handsets, 1 flare pistol, and 3 magazines each. Both men volunteered without question, though I saw the worry in Dean's jaw. We watched them disappear into the fog, silhouettes swallowed within 10 steps. I told Jones to cut the engine. The silence after the motor died felt wrong. You could hear water shifting over stones, then that dull, slow hum building back in the radio static. The antenna swayed a little, not from wind, but from vibration through the air. The smell was worse now, thick and chemical, almost like creosote mixed with spoiled fruit. The men covered their noses with sleeves. At 1340, Dean reported over the handset. He said they found tire marks in the mud near the bend, but the tracks ended sharp at the edge of clean gravel. No drag, no slide, just gone. He sounded steady but short of breath. Then the signal cut. I tried to raise him again. No answer. Jones turned the antenna toward the creek and tapped the set. The hum vanished for a second, then came back twice as strong. I ordered everyone into ready positions. We spaced the trucks in a staggered line facing the creek, 50 yards between lead and tail. The gunners chambered rounds, safeties on. I didn't want to believe we'd walked into an ambush, but training doesn't allow faith to replace caution. I had them scan the tree line, though I doubted the enemy could see through that fog any better than us. Minutes crawled. Then a flare fired somewhere upstream, white, low, and brief, like it came from the ground instead of a pistol. It blinked once and died before it reached height. I couldn't tell if it was Dean's or not. I called again. No reply. The fog moved in waves now, folding and stretching like something breathing under it. The bamboo on the far bank kept knocking, always in that same pattern of 3. At 1400, I decided to cross. Waiting meant losing the rest of the daylight, and I needed to know what took those trucks. I moved the lead gun truck forward, Jones driving, me standing through the turret ring. The water hit the bumper, then halfway up the grill. The current tugged at the wheels, but the bed held steady. I told Jones to hold that position while I looked. Through the fog, I saw shapes low, round, half hidden. For a second, I thought they were rocks. Then the current shifted and I caught metal shine. It looked like the side of a truck, just the top edge under the water. I waved to Jones and stepped down again, waiting until the cold hit my thighs. The bottom was uneven, soft clay giving way to stone plates. I leaned forward to feel the surface, but it dropped away clean, no slope, just empty space. I pulled back fast and climbed to the hood. My boot left a dark print on the paint, the kind that wouldn't wash off. I told Jones to reverse slow. The tires slipped, but caught. Once we backed clear of the water, I saw ripples spreading from the same spot where I had stepped. They circled once, twice, then vanished. The creek went calm again. I checked the radio. Dean still silent. I switched frequencies, hit battalion channel, called for air recon. Only static. When I turned the dial back, the hum returned, louder than before, like something behind the signal was pressing closer. The men were watching me, waiting for answers I didn't have. I told them we'd camp on higher ground and wait for dawn, then reassess. Nobody argued. They were too tired to fight orders by then. We moved the trucks uphill off the road, forming a half circle with the gun trucks at both ends. I set a guard roster and checked ammo levels. Each man carried full load, but I could tell from their faces they didn't believe we'd need it for the usual enemy. When the sun dipped, the fog glowed faintly like ash over water. Jones brewed coffee on the tailgate stove. It tasted of rust and smoke, but it kept us awake. I walked back to the ford one last time before dark. The smell hit stronger there, almost sour. I crouched at the edge and touched the surface. It felt warmer than the air. Something brushed my boot. Not hard, just a bump. I aimed my light. Nothing there, only the current and the faint shimmer of oil. I backed away and wrote one line in my notebook, creek depth unknown. Movement under current. When I returned to camp, the men sat in silence. The bamboo kept clacking 3 times, pausing, then again. I told Jones to check the perimeter. He nodded, eyes down, hands shaking just a bit. The night fell fast. We set out perimeter lights, but the fog swallowed their glow within yards. It was like shining flashlights into milk. The night pressed close, thick, and heavy. Even the jungle quieted down. No frogs, no birds, only that steady sound of bamboo knocking. Always in 3. Never off rhythm. The men took shifts 2 at a time. No one slept much. The air was too damp, the smell too sharp. Diesel and rot hung in the lungs. Around midnight, a faint tremor moved through the ground, gentle at first, then stronger, as if something large was shifting under the creek bed. One of the drivers swore he heard engines under the water, slow and distant. I told him it was runoff echoing through the culvert, but I wasn't sure myself. Jones sat beside me, eyes red from fatigue. He said he couldn't stop hearing that hum, even when the radio was off. I took the handset and held it to my ear. The static had a pulse to it now, faint but steady. I checked the power switch twice. It was definitely off. That's when I knew it wasn't the set. Whatever that hum was, it came from outside. At 0200, a flash lit the fog from below the creek. It wasn't lightning. It came from under the surface, blue-white and silent. The ground shook again. The men jumped to their weapons, barrels swinging toward the ford. Nothing followed, just the glow fading into black. I started counting heads. Dean and Ellis were still gone. I radioed again, just in case. Static answered, then a short burst of whispering, too faint to understand, but too clear to be random. I caught part of a number, maybe coordinates, maybe something else. Then a cut. I decided we'd go down at dawn and search the bank proper. No point losing more men in dark and fog. The hours crawled. I wrote every change in a small field log. 0245, ground vibration. 0315, fog density same. 0410, unknown light under creek. No enemy movement. It was habit now. Writing helped keep my hands steady. Just before first light, the fog thinned enough to show shapes again. The creek looked higher than before, wider too. I could see the old pylons more clearly. They leaned toward each other now, like something had pushed from beneath. I sent Private Hughes to gather the ropes and chains. If the missing trucks were lodged in a sinkhole, we might winch them out once we located them. We moved slow toward the ford. The mud had changed color overnight, dark gray now, like clay burned in a fire. It clung to our boots, thick and sticky. The water carried streaks of red-brown silt, though no soil around us matched that shade. When the first gun truck rolled forward, its tires sank halfway before finding grip. Jones climbed up the turret and scanned with binoculars. "Something's floating," he said. "I saw it too. Canvas, maybe from a truck tarp, caught on a branch midstream. It drifted loose, spinning slowly before dipping under. I thought we'd found a piece of the lead truck." When it surfaced again downstream, the fabric looked different, too smooth, like plastic wrap around a crate. I ordered the men to anchor a winch to the nearest tree. We worked in pairs, keeping the gun trucks aimed at the ford. Every few seconds, we'd hear a deep thud from the creek bottom, as if rocks were being moved. One of the younger drivers panicked and asked if we should pull back. I told him no. We weren't leaving without proof of loss. Then the rope went tight on its own. No one had pulled. The winch motor whined. The rope stretched like something below was pulling back. Hughes shouted and hit the release, but the rope didn't slacken. It snapped with a sharp crack, whipping through the fog and burning a line across his glove. He fell to his knees, gasping. The end of the rope slipped under the current and vanished. We froze. No one spoke. The bamboo on the far bank started knocking again, louder this time. The smell rolled over us, wet iron and burnt oil. The hum rose through the ground, humming in the soles of my boots like a live wire. I signaled everyone to fall back to the trucks. We formed a tight perimeter on the slope, guns aimed low toward the creek. Nothing came out, but the ripples kept moving upstream against the current. Then, from the fog, a voice called our unit name. Clear, calm, and wrong. It wasn't any man from my crew. The tone was too even, like someone reading from a list. Jones muttered that it sounded like our own radio operator back at base. I keyed the mic, asked for call sign verify. The reply came instant, confirmed. Proceed across. But the call sign was outdated. It hadn't been used in months. I shut the radio off and told the men to pack up. Whatever that voice was, I wasn't giving it another chance. We'd wait till daylight burned off the fog, then we'd move back toward the highway. As we turned to the trucks, the ground trembled once more. The sound that followed wasn't thunder. It was metal twisting under strain. The creek churned, darker than before, carrying pieces of bamboo and what looked like bits of wood decking from the old bridge. We climbed fast, boots slipping on wet clay. When we reached the road, I looked back one last time. The water had risen almost to the road's edge. The men loaded up in silence. No one asked about Dean and Ellis. No one asked about the missing trucks. We all saw enough to know that nothing normal waited in that creek. The fog began to lift, showing pale sunlight over the valley. For a moment, everything looked calm again, as if the night had been only a fever dream. Then Jones pointed downstream. Half buried in the mud, something metal gleamed. It was a door panel with our convoy's number stenciled on it. Clean, not rusted, and bent in a shape that didn't match any crash I'd ever seen. That was when I realized the road ahead led us deeper into the same valley. There was no way out without crossing that creek again. At first light, we rolled the trucks to the bend near the valley floor. The fog had thinned, but the air felt heavier than before. I wanted one clean look at the ford before deciding to abandon it. The men were tired, faces gray under the helmets. I could tell none of them believed the missing trucks would be found intact. Still, they followed orders without a word. That's what soldiers do, move forward until someone says stop. Down by the bank, I found something half buried under wet silt. A rusted tin box with French writing on it. Inside were water-soaked papers, the kind used for maps. One sheet still held its lines. Across the top was the old survey mark, Ruisseau Noir Black Creek. The map showed tunnels running under the watercourse, part of an abandoned drainage system built decades ago. I traced the markings with my finger and froze. The ford where we lost our trucks sat right above the tunnel mouth. That explained the sudden drop, but not why the water moved backward last night, or why the hum seemed to rise whenever we pointed radios downstream. I studied the sheet again. The tunnel network extended far west, ending near a set of coordinates stamped in red ink. They matched the restricted area I had seen once on a battalion overlay, a zone linked to chemical testing and denied patrol access. Someone had steered us straight through it. Jones stood behind me, quiet. He asked if command knew about these tunnels. I told him maybe they did, maybe that's why we were sent here. The sealed crates in the cargo trucks were labeled for communications repair, but the weight logs never matched. I'd handled plenty of radio gear before. Those crates had been too heavy for spare parts. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the rain. The route order from battalion had come by voice, not written dispatch. I had logged it myself, but no one else had heard it. If the paperwork didn't exist, neither would this mission once we disappeared. I went back to the gun truck and checked our frequency sheet. The call sign that ordered us through Black Creek wasn't listed anywhere. The sheet ended at Foxtrot 2, but the voice had signed Foxtrot 3. That was not a valid call. I switched the radio on and tuned through static. At first, only the hum. Then a faint click, then silence. I waited, listening. Finally, the same voice came through, calm and even. Convoy, confirm cargo secure. The words were mine from yesterday's log, played back in the same rhythm I used. I turned the dial off. Jones looked at me for answers. I had none. I just said we'd finish what we started. Pull the wrecks up, recover what we could, and get out. I couldn't shake the feeling someone was listening from the other side of that hum. We rigged chains again, this time from the rear gun truck as anchor. I sent 2 men with ropes to feel along the bank where the current slowed. They found bits of rubber and a canvas strap with fresh cuts, not torn, sliced clean. I pocketed it without comment. When I compared it later with my own knife, the cut marks were smoother, finer, like wire had done it. The day grew hotter. Steam rose off the water in slow waves. I told the men to drink and keep helmets on. The sound of bamboo clacking had shifted farther downstream, as if following us. I unfolded the French map again, trying to line its old marks with the terrain. The tunnel entrance sat under the far bank, 20 yards from where we tried to cross. I circled it in pencil and wrote, possible cause of loss. Then I drew a second circle over the red ink zone. A straight line connected both points, crossing right under our position. That's when I saw it. 3 small triangles drawn along that line, marked with a single word in French I didn't recognize. Later, I'd learned it translated to vent. We weren't standing on a road, we were standing on the top of a buried structure. The truth landed slow. The creek had eaten through the tunnel roof, and when the first truck crossed, the surface collapsed. The others went down after it. That explained part of it, but not why the hum still pulsed through the ground, or why the French engineers had sealed this area instead of repairing it. Something else had been stored down there once, something no one wanted found again. I folded the map and slid it into my jacket. Then I told Jones we'd recover what we could before sundown and pull out no matter what command said. But the creek had other plans. By late afternoon, the fog had lifted just enough to see the far bank. The light came through gray and thin, like it didn't want to stay. I ordered the men to set the winch line again, this time with a shorter chain. The hook went under the surface, clinking against something solid. The motor strained, gears whining as we pulled. For a second, the chain moved, then caught hard. The creek began to bubble. It wasn't air, it was gas, thick and yellow, rising in slow bursts. The smell hit next, sharp and bitter like old insecticide. The men covered their mouths. The water churned where the line disappeared. Jones gunned the engine to give more pull, and the winch screeched. Something broke loose. A truck's tailgate surfaced just the edge, coated in dark slime. The markings were clear, one of ours. The men cheered low, quick, then fell quiet when they saw what came with it. The meadow glistened wet, pitted as if it had been down there for years, not one night. The chain jerked once more and went slack. The tailgate slipped back under with barely a ripple. I waved everyone back from the waterline. The air had turned heavier again, thick enough that every breath burned the throat. The bamboo started that 3-beat clack, steady and close. Then the hum came back, louder than before, deep enough to rattle the truck frames. I climbed onto the gun truck and switched the radio to scan. All channels carried the same hum. No voices, no static, just that endless tone that seemed to match the pulse under the ground. Then a sudden burst, Dean's voice, only one word, below. The mic clicked dead. I froze. Jones stared at me, wide-eyed. Dean had been missing more than a full day. His frequency should have gone cold by now. I tried to answer, but the set crackled and bled white noise. The men started murmuring. Some swore they heard voices under the hum. Others said it sounded like engine idles, distant and low. I didn't argue. The line between sound and mine was too thin now. I checked the map again, tracing the tunnels. If Dean's call came from below, maybe he had fallen through a section of the culvert. The idea was mad, but it gave me something to hold on to. I decided to cross the creek myself. We stripped down to gear and weapons. I left 2 men to cover us from the near bank. The water reached my waist, cold as metal, pushing hard. Each step sank deeper until I hit the drop. Beneath the surface, I felt stone edges, smooth and carved. That was no natural bed. Jones handed me a rope and clipped it to his belt. We edged forward until the current caught my legs. I went under halfway before hitting something solid, a corner like the edge of a concrete arch. When I wiped the muck off, I saw metal underneath, dull and curved. Letters etched into it, not English, not Vietnamese, French maybe. I could only read one, vent. The current tugged harder, pulling from beneath. The rope jerked tight, almost tearing my shoulder. I yelled for Jones to pull back. He braced and hauled, muscles straining, but the suction fought us both. Then the ground below me shifted. A deep groan rose from under the creek, the sound of stone cracking in slow motion. We stumbled free just as the water folded in on itself. A whirlpool opened where I had been standing seconds before. It spun fast, sucking down mud, bamboo, and everything loose. The sound was deafening, but beneath it, I swore I heard a second noise, like engines running deep underground, steady and deliberate. When it stopped, the creek went still again. The whirlpool left the hollow circle, smooth as glass. Jones fell to his knees on the bank, breathing hard. I could see the fear in his eyes, and I knew it mirrored mine. We backed away, dragging the rope with us. At the end of the line, the hook was bent backward, clean and sharp, as though it had met something stronger than steel. That night, the fog returned, thicker than ever. The bamboo clacked faster now, no longer in 3-beat rhythm, but uneven, like it was answering something unseen. I didn't write in my log. I just stared at the water, knowing the creek wasn't finished with us. We started the final pull at dawn. The mist lay low, drifting like smoke from a battlefield. Every truck still running was moved into position along the bank. I gave short orders. Keep the guns ready, engines steady, eyes forward. The men nodded, no talk. We all knew this was the last try. Jones and I checked the winch cable twice, running our hands along its length. The steel felt alive, warm from friction, though it hadn't moved yet. The hum came faint again through the air, like it had been waiting for us to begin. I marked the depth with my boot at the water's edge, then drew a line with the heel cold, reached halfway up my shin. The measure never changed, no matter how much the creek looked to rise or fall. We lowered the hook back into the same dark patch where the tailgate had surfaced. The cable tightened, the motor roared, gears grinding under strain. The water shifted, circling in wide, slow spirals. Then a shape rose. A truck hood, rusted but ours, headlight shattered, grille bent in half. Mud streamed off it like smoke. The men cheered once, weakly, then stopped when they saw what was inside. The windshield was gone, the cab empty, but the seatbelts were still latched. I waited close enough to touch the fender. The metal felt soft, like clay left in sun. Underneath the paint, the surface had turned black. Not burned, changed. Jones shouted that the winch was slipping. I waved him to hold steady. The engine strained harder, and the line hissed through the mud. The truck's rear end lifted an inch, maybe two, then the water under it boiled. Steam hissed up around us. The smell of creosote came strong, mixed with something like bleach. The engine of the gun truck coughed once, sputtered, and died. All at once, the hum stopped. The silence hit like pressure. Then came a thud under the ground, deep enough to shake the bamboo line. The clacking returned, faster now, like a warning. The water under the wreck split open, and the truck dropped out of sight as if swallowed. The winch cable whipped, snapping from the drum and cutting across the slope. One man went down with a scream, his leg torn open. Jones grabbed him, dragged him behind cover. I could do nothing but stare at the hole where the truck had been. Then the radio came alive. The same calm voice from before, this time sharper, louder. Convoy, report cargo secured. I yanked the handset off the hook. Identify yourself, I said. Nothing. Just the sound of a deep breath, then static again. The hum returned, rising through the truck frames. The headlights flickered, though the engines were off. Every dial on my dashboard trembled. Jones looked at me and said we had to leave, that whatever was down there didn't want company. I agreed. I gave the order to move. The men packed fast, dragging the wounded onto flatbeds. The air thickened with fog again, folding in on us. The bamboo kept clacking. I tried to guide the column uphill, but the road was half gone, eaten by mud. The tires spun, digging deeper. Then, from the direction of the creek, a new light bloomed. Not bright, just a low orange glow under the water, like fire seen through glass. It spread slow, moving under the current toward us. The men froze. One whispered that it looked like headlights. I told him to move, but the glow kept coming, forming two perfect circles side by side. It reached the bank and stopped. The water rose slightly, pushing waves against our boots. Then the glow went out. No sound. No splash. Only that hum again, steady and close. Jones said he saw movement below the surface, like gears turning. I didn't look. I knew we'd seen enough to fill any report, though none of it would make sense. I ordered the rear gun truck to cover withdrawal and keep the 50 trained on the ford. The others started reversing up the slope. The mud grabbed at the tires, making each yard feel like 10. Halfway up, the rear truck opened fire, short bursts, controlled. I turned. Through the fog, I saw something rising from the water, a shape half metal, half shadow. It looked like the roof of a truck, but too smooth, too long. The water poured off it in sheets. No one spoke. We just watched until it sank again, slow and deliberate, as if lowering itself back to rest. When it was gone, the bamboo went silent. The hum faded. The fog began to drift apart. I climbed into my truck and told Jones to drive. We didn't speak for the rest of the climb. Behind us, the creek was quiet again, as if nothing had ever happened there. We made the ridge by late morning. The rain started again, soft and steady, washing the mud from the trucks. I called a short halt so the men could catch their breath. No one talked about what we had seen. The wounded driver sat wrapped in a poncho, pale but alive. His leg was bad, cut deep by the snapped cable, but he kept quiet. The others just stared down the slope toward the creek. From the ridge, we could see the valley laid out like a gray wound. The fog below moved in slow circles over the water. I counted the trucks left. 6 cargoes still running. 1 gun truck barely holding oil pressure. The second gun truck, the rear guard, had stopped firing 20 minutes ago. I looked back down the trail. No sign of it. I tried the radio again, changing to backup frequency. Static. Then faint feedback, the same low hum. I switched to emergency channel. Finally, a signal our call letters repeated twice, then the voice of the operations center in Pleiku. They wanted a situation report. I gave coordinates, stated 2 trucks lost in water, 1 wounded. When I mentioned the sealed crates, the line went quiet. Then a new voice came on, smoother, not our usual controller. Convoy, secure position, do not advance. Extraction detail en route. Then the line died. Jones frowned. Extraction? We didn't call for that. I told him I hadn't either. Below, the fog thickened again. It poured uphill like smoke from a fire. The sound came with it, the bamboo knocking, slow and patient, always in 3. The men raised rifles without order. The wounded driver started whispering, saying he could still hear the rear gun truck's 50 firing somewhere under the ground. I didn't answer. Then the earth under us shifted. A deep vibration rolled through the ridge, strong enough to shake tools loose from racks. The valley floor bulged, rippling as though something underneath was pushing upward. A minute later, it settled again. The hum that followed was softer this time, almost peaceful. Jones said we couldn't stay. He was right. I ordered the convoy to roll north toward the old French line on the map where the road might link to Route 544. The men moved fast, engines roaring to life. We left the fog behind for a moment, bouncing over ruts and roots. The trail narrowed. Dense bamboo closed around us. Visibility dropped to a few yards. The knocking sound moved ahead of us now, leading instead of chasing. Every few seconds, I thought I saw flashes of light through the stalks, metallic reflections that vanished when I looked straight at them. We hit a clearing near a split in the trail. I told Jones to stop. The map showed only one road, but here, the path forked. One way curved uphill toward dry ground. The other sloped down into more fog. I didn't need to think long. "We take the high road," I said. The first truck rolled forward, tires slipping on slick roots. The second followed, its engine coughing black smoke. As the third lined up, the fog ahead stirred again. Out of it came headlights, two steady beams, low and slow. They moved toward us with no sound. I lifted the binoculars. The shape behind them was a cargo truck, Jones whispered. "Ours?" I looked closer. The markings matched our convoy number. Same dented fender, same painted plate. But we'd watched that one go under. I keyed the mic, called for its driver. No answer. The truck kept coming, straight and smooth, water dripping off its frame. I ordered the men to hold fire. The headlights dimmed, then flickered. The truck stopped 30 yards short, engine silent. The door hung open. No one inside. I climbed down and walked forward a few paces, rifle low. The mud carried my boots deep. The smell hit first creosote and wet metal. I reached the bumper and touched it. The steel was cold, but dry. The ignition key still in place. When I opened the cab door wider, water poured out, clear and warm, steaming in the air. Jones called out behind me to get clear, but I couldn't move. Something inside the cab drew my eyes, the sealed crate. One of the missing ones. The straps were cut, the lid half pried open. I raised the cover just enough to see paper sealed in wax and a metal canister with a hazard stencil worn off. Then the hum burst through the ground again, stronger than before. My teeth buzzed with it. The truck engine roared to life by itself, gears grinding in neutral. The door slammed shut so hard it threw me back. I hit the mud, gasping. The headlights blazed white, blinding. The wheels spun, throwing muck, but the truck didn't move. It just screamed in place. Jones opened fire, short bursts into the engine block. The round sparked, but the truck didn't stop. Instead, it slid backward into the fog, slow and steady until it vanished. The hum faded with it. We stood there, soaked and shaking. Nobody spoke. I walked back to the convoy, ears ringing. The men waited for orders, but all I could say was, "We're done here." We turned uphill again, engines groaning, gears whining. The bamboo knocking faded behind us, growing softer until it was gone. Only the smell stayed, hanging on our clothes and the truck metal. When we reached the main road near the French marker, the sun broke through the clouds for the first time in days. The light felt wrong, too bright after so much gray. I looked back one last time at the valley. The fog still moved in slow circles. Whatever was left down there belonged to the creek now. We reached the forward base near Dak To by nightfall. Mud coated everything. Trucks, boots, skin. The sentries didn't even check our papers. They just waved us through when they saw what was left of the convoy. The men climbed down in silence, every face hollow from the hours behind us. The wounded driver was carried straight to the med tent. I walked to the operations shack to report. Inside, the light was yellow and weak. Two officers sat behind a table, both in clean uniforms, dry boots. They listened without interrupting while I read from the logbook. When I finished, the taller one asked if I had written proof of the route order. I told him no, it came over radio. He nodded, said nothing, and took my notebook. They told me to stand by outside. I waited under the awning for almost an hour, rain pattering on the tin roof. When they called me back in, the logbook was gone. They said my statement would be typed later. I asked about recovery for the lost trucks. The answer came short. Too deep, too unstable, not worth the risk. They told me to rejoin my unit and not mention the sealed crates again. I walked out knowing the case was closed before it began. The next morning, I checked the motor pool logs. Both missing vehicles were already listed as destroyed by flood, paperwork dated the day before the mission. I knew then it had been arranged from the start. The men spent 2 days at base refitting. Nobody slept well. At night, some said they heard engines running faint in the hills, though none of ours were on the line. One man swore he smelled creosote every time the wind shifted east. Another said he dreamed of headlights moving underwater. I didn't tell them I heard the same hum in the generator line whenever it rained. A week later, battalion called me to Pleiku for debrief. A major from S2 asked detailed questions about the cargo weights, crate sizes, markings. He never asked about the men who disappeared. When I brought up the map I'd found, he stopped writing and told me there was no record of any French drainage work in that area. He slid a fresh operations map across the table. The Black Creek spur wasn't on it anymore. They reassigned half my crew to other convoys. Jones and I stayed with the same truck, though maintenance tagged it as due for salvage. The frame was warped, the engine burned oil, but I wouldn't trade it. It was the only thing that still felt real. Before leaving Pleiku, I went to supply to draw new charts. The clerk, a quiet sergeant from engineering, handed me the sheets without a word. When I flipped through, I found a folded scrap between pages, old paper, edges burned, a French heading. One word, Ruisseau Noir. Underneath it, a short note written in pencil, do not open the ground. I kept that scrap folded in my pocket for years. 2 weeks later, I volunteered to ride with an engineer detail sent to clear debris along the old route. Officially, it was for survey. In truth, I wanted to see Black Creek one more time. We left Pleiku at dawn, just 3 trucks this time. The road in was half gone, rutted deep with water lines. The air smelled of rot and wet clay. When we reached the valley, the place looked different. The bamboo had been cut back, and new stakes marked the ford. The creek itself ran lower now, almost calm. The engineers said the water had dropped after a landslide upstream. They joked that we might find the missing trucks high and dry. None did. The bed was clean, too clean. Smooth gravel from bank to bank. Not a scrap of metal or canvas anywhere. I walked to the spot where the tailgate had surfaced. The mud felt firmer, the water clear enough to see the bottom. There was no hole, no sign of the tunnel mouth, nothing but silt and stones. I dropped to one knee and let my hand rest in the flow. It was warm again. Not hot, just warm enough to notice. One of the engineers called me over. He'd found old rebar sticking from the bank. When he scraped the mud away, we saw concrete beneath, old and gray, shaped like the arch of a culvert. French work, just like on the map. He wanted to plant charges to collapse it, but the ground began to tremble while he set the wire. Not a quake, something deeper. The water rippled in steady beats, each one timed like a slow pulse. We backed off. The lead engineer stared at the current for a long minute, then quietly packed the detonators back into the crate. We'll write it as finished, he said. Let it stay closed. I didn't argue. On the ride back, the rain followed us all the way to the main road. The fog rose again behind, filling the valley until it vanished from sight. That night, at base, I filed the report. I kept it simple, creek stable, no recoverable equipment, no structural hazard. I turned it in and left the room. I knew no one would read it twice. A few days later, Jones was transferred south. I never saw him again. He left me a single note in my gearbox. If they call for another run up that way, burn the orders. I still have it. Months passed, then the war moved on. But every wet season after that, the same story went around. New convoys taking wrong turns near Dak To, units that never checked in. Always in fog. Always near a creek that didn't show on any new maps. Years later, when I looked at satellite prints, I saw that stretch of valley again. The water line had shifted west, leaving a dry scar where the road once ran. Right at the center sat a circular patch of darker soil, smooth as glass. I remembered the whirlpool, the hum, the light under the water. They said nature reclaims everything out here. Maybe that's true. But Black Creek never gave back what it took. It's been many years since that mission, but the sound of that creek still stays with me. Sometimes, when rain hits the roof at night, I hear that same slow hum under it, rising and fading like a breath through wires. It's strange what a man remembers. Not faces. Not orders. Just the rhythm of water and the smell of creosote. After I came home, I tried to find records of the Black Creek route. None exist. The transport log lists only a routine delivery on that date, marked completed. The names of the men lost there aren't in any after-action file. Even Dean and Ellis, no trace. I checked years later through veterans' rolls. Nothing. As if they never served. Once, during a reunion, an old operations officer told me offhand that Pleiku ran a handful of covert hauls under false call signs. He didn't remember details. He said most of those runs disappeared off paperwork during the chemical zone closures. When I asked if one might have been mine, he looked at me too long, then changed the subject. I stopped asking questions after that. Some things are meant to be buried, and the ground there seems willing to keep its secrets. Still, every time I see rainwater pool in a ditch, I can't help measuring its depth with my boot, waiting for that drop, that pull under the surface. I sometimes dream of the truck still down there, headlights burning faint beneath the mud, engines turning slow in the dark. Maybe it's memory, maybe it's warning. I don't know. What I do know is that no man should be ordered where the maps end and the water runs black. If anyone ever finds that place again, tell them this: do not open the ground. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And for more amazing horror stories, just click the ones showing right now on your screen.